Say hello to Craig.
Oh, so this does the
Hello,
noise cancellation.
Craig.
Yes.
Hello, Craig.
Craig is our helpful recording bear who joins us for these sessions.
Mm-hmm. Does that mean he's
You know-
hairy?
Did
you
don't
name
know.
them?
Well, I never give it. Everyone is allowed to choose their own name and how they want to be addressed, I think. And Craig has chosen to be addressed as Craig the Bear.
I think we're learning something about you.
If you're only just learning it now. I question our friendship if you're only just learning this now.
Fair point. Should we talk about the experience of weather and being autistic?
Sure. I mean, it's topical, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The room is getting steadily hotter because I've had to turn the fan off to record. Should we pod?
Oh, no.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Atypical, the podcast where we look at life from a more atypical point of view. I'm joined today by my co-host, Marianne. Hello, Marianne.
Hello. Well,
I'm
there is
here.
a mysterious...
I'm back. I'm
no.
bloody boiling.
Who? I thought we changed the passwords to the Discord. How did the mysterious voice make it back in here? Oh, it has been rather warm though, hasn't it?
Yeah, that you can say that's to say the least. It's been I mean, when it's
like an oven.
40 degree when it's 40 degrees at 6 p.m, you know things are going a bit wrong.
It's currently 32 in my room, so you know.
My the thermometer in here is a kind of decorative thermometer, and I think the highest it goes is about 26 to 28. So all of the, I want to say mercury, but whatever the different densities of liquid are in it have all dropped to the bottom, which I think is probably coming up.
Do you, by any chance, have a Galileo thermometer?
I was about to say, is it a Galileo?
Yes, it probably is. I mean, whether it's still well calibrated, we've had it for years, is another question.
I've got a Galileo thermometer sitting here to my left. I'll jiggle it.
I mean, they are
Probably
fantastic
hear the
things.
jiggling. They're
No,
so
we can't.
sweet. My family broke my other one, the colourful one, and I got really sad. And then the liquid spilled out onto the sofa.
That's probably going to be quite difficult to clean up.
Oh yes, it was. My mother was furious.
What's the liquid like?
Apparently, it was oily, like really oily.
Ooh, I guess it would be.
I thought it was glycerin, but maybe it's some sort of oil instead of that. I thought it was glycerin because a lot of the gauges use glycerin, but I guess maybe it's some sort of oil. She said it smelled like kerosene.
I feel like there's a topic here about being so hot you kind of overload and break.
Well, I guess it's kind of that sort of autistic hypersensitivity thing, isn't it? I mean, I'm relatively minimal on that scale. I mean, there are certain things that do really set me off, and I can't deal with the touch of. But I mean, I'm wondering if whether or not. And this, I apologise to the listeners because we're all just drenched in sweat, and this is all we can think about right now. Is there a touch sensation issue if you're particularly hot and you're sweating, your clothes are sticking to you? Do you think that might actually be even worse for people who've got a neurodivergent condition that makes things like hypersensitivity and alexithymia? Is it alexithymia?
Alexithymia.
Yeah.
I think is that to do with not really knowing what you're feeling like or something,
Yes.
Not being able to pinpoint it.
Yeah.
I think the sensory thing might be worse, maybe because some of our senses are worse. Like for me, loud sounds, they're the worst. I don't really like heat, but I don't like it when the tops of my legs and the bottoms of my legs are meeting together and then they get moist, like the knee armpit. I hate when that happens.
Yeah.
And I never let my arms touch my torso when it's hot, so my armpits are always with a nice sort of space and breeze in between them. So, because I hate the feeling of moisture.
Okay, so there you go. So that's kind of what I was getting at there. Is that sort of that sensitivity thing of the damp sensation, that sort of the sweating skin.
I hate that. So I try and prevent it.
Do you find it particularly unsettling? Do you?
Yeah, really unsettling. So when I'm at work, I kind of do something that is kind of weird. So I wash my feet a few times a day. Like if there's any moisture, I just casually wash my feet loads of times. Like there's a multi-gender bathrooms in my work, and I can just like wash my feet like I wash the hands. Obviously, I clean up after, but I just hate the feeling of any moisture. And also crossing your legs is horrible as well. And the sun protection is slimy.
Oh, so no, this is an interesting one. Somebody else was telling me about. Sorry, mysterious voice. Go ahead.
Yeah, I find it. I guess I find it difficult in two ways. One is the kind of direct effect of just the kind of heat and the sort of sweatiness makes it. Yeah, you have that thing where you have like a limb or a joint pressed, and then you kind of have to move a bit. And then there's also the effect of sun cream, which I think makes things worse.
Mhm.
But if you don't have it, oh my god, that is a sensory fun. But then I think the problem is I find that when it's hot and I'm in that kind of position, there's a kind of social impact because you end up adjusting yourself quite a lot. In general, I think it's obviously more socially awkward if you're kind of adjusting around there. It's
Yeah.
elsewhere, like it can also be socially awkward, especially if you're like in a kind of tight space where you're like kind of like sat next to someone like cramped on a bit of a train or something, like trying to move. I think it's often in general hard to sit particularly still when you're autistic.
Mm-hmm.
But I think
Yes.
the heat means that I feel like what makes it hard to sit still is at some point you start to get a kind of an itch or a need to move that I think with heat just happens a lot more. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think in some ways, especially if there's extreme heat, I think people are, I don't know, maybe more expecting that people are going to be uncomfortable moving and shuffling a bit. So maybe it's less awkward in that way, but also it's kind of like, it's awkward in other ways. I mean, that's kind of hypersensitivity to touch, which is definitely a feature. I think we probably all have, but in different ways. But it's also socially awkward.
My
Mm.
front gets really warm as well. So sometimes I sort of gently open my top and start blowing air down in the top area. So I obviously have to do that when no one else is around. But otherwise,
Yeah.
it gets really warm and horrible. So I hate that
Is-
feeling as well. And fabrics. Fabrics are really important, like cotton only when it's really, really hot. Because
Yeah.
any sort of modern synthetic fabric really sticks to you and is horrible. Like I see these people wearing like these legging style things. They're like shorts but leggings, so it looks like their body is in a sock. I think it's more of a female thing. These little
Okay.
tight lycra type things all over the body, and I'm thinking, how can you wear that thing when it's clinging to you like that? Right now, I'm wearing a white, really loose-fitting cotton top thingy, which is kind of like frilly, so it's really cooling. But yeah, some people wear like the full body lycra thing, and I really don't understand that.
Well, it's like, I don't understand how. I have on some hot days in the past. I definitely wouldn't even today, but had to wear a suit into work or something like that, and that's uncomfortable. Not least because like suits, you just can't win. You wear the jacket and you're boiling. You leave the jacket behind, and your stuff falls out your pockets. They're just not very practical. There was always the expectation in the past about wearing a suit even in hot weather. Or like at least
Oh,
the
God,
trousers,
could
and
you
it's
imagine?
just uncomfortable. And there clearly
Oh
is
my
like
God.
there clearly are suits that are better equipped for that. But my like wardrobe coordination and sense of that is bad enough at the best of times in kind of normal times. Having the presence of mind when it comes to fashion enough to have like specific summer suits or something, an outfit which I would wear very sparingly anyway. And frankly, the problem you run into in summer is that like, yeah, okay, you got a summer suit. You also need a shirt for every single day. It's not like you can just have like it's not like a wedding outfit where you just have like
yeah,
a
just have the
fancy
one.
outfit for like one day. You need to have it every day, and they do look. I mean, like in countries where they need to wear that generally, that's something that can actually look really stylish. But I think in general, the clothes I go for are things that kind of averages. You know, I wear a coat in winter, and I guess in the summer I used to leave my suit jacket behind if I had to and chuck stuff in my bag. But like one of the things I found quite good coming out of the pandemic is so far norms on what you wear haven't really come back, which
No,
I
it's
find
wonderful,
makes
isn't it?
so much easier. I mean, the only case where I did wear a suit, and even then I wasn't sure, although I was glad I did because everyone had worn one, but I wasn't that sure if I needed to wear one or not, was I was giving a presentation. I'm glad I wore a suit for that, but it felt so strange to wear one after the pandemic. And I don't want to get to a position where everyone's kind of firming up on what they do. It would probably make me think twice about a job if it was the kind of job where, I guess because you're seeing clients a lot and it's the kind of social expectation, people had to wear suits all the time, because I just don't find it that comfortable. I think I'd probably, if I absolutely had to do that, I guess maybe I'll be in a position where I decided to maybe get a properly tailored suit. So I have got a couple of tailored suits I got in Vietnam. Oh God, a few years ago now. But
Good place to
I mean,
go.
yeah, they haven't worn well, but they were relatively cheap for that kind of level of kind of fitting. I mean, also like, you get a bit older and the fit stops working as much anymore. But I mean, in general, they were right. I think probably what I needed was some fitted shirts as well. I mean, that actually was where it pays off a bit more. And I might maybe at some point do that if I'm looking to look really professional. But I just think I struggle to justify the cost. And especially because, like, talking about heat, if it's so something you use so rarely, I mean, how do you justify it? I mean, in practice lately, I mean, I finally broke my mental taboo on going into the office in shorts in the last few days because, well,
I
actually,
mean,
no,
I've been doing it for
particularly
weeks.
today, and a t-shirt. Which,
Yeah?
like,
Yeah.
I mean, apart from, I would sometimes wear t-shirts on Fridays because they still seem like more casual Fridays, even if there is not casual
Yeah, I
anymore.
think legs should always be allowed in this heat. Nobody should be forced to
Yeah.
wear full leg coverings, including the lower
Yeah.
leg.
I think right
Really
now it's a
bad.
thing that if you just do it, you can get away with, and you're fine. Like the head of a department I work with he was just wearing shorts, and that was a little bit of a
Nice.
reassurance. But I mean, frankly, I think today anyone who tries to enforce any kind of uniform thing is just being an asshole.
And yet you
Yeah.
can just hear somewhere in the country was a teacher telling a kid to put his blazer back on.
Yeah.
Oh God, don't take my memory back there. We had to have our blazers on all the time. Weren't allowed to take them off.
The shorts one is an interesting one. So I very daringly wore shorts to the office in the summer of 2019, and I got a few comments. And I went, oh, okay, fine, I'll wear trousers again the next day. Now I turn up in just shorts and a t-shirt. It doesn't matter because it's all. I think this is the great learning thing from the pandemic and work from home and so forth. Is look, you've seen inside my bedroom for 2 years. You've seen me in every state of dishevelled. If you're that concerned about whether or not I'm wearing a suit in the office, then frankly, I don't want to work with you. And I think that's been a real benefit to people, a bit like ourselves, who maybe a bit more neurodivergent and I don't know about you. I never feel comfortable wearing, like, air quotes, smart clothes. Wearing a shirt collar where it's pressing up against my neck. I really struggle wearing ties. I struggle with having things tight around my neck. It's just
I hate ties.
It upsets me on a visceral level.
Yeah.
And so I think actually, in some ways, the work from home thing has, I think, been a real positive. Not just that, but also things like showing that people actually can work from home. So on days when it is particularly hot, like today, when actually traveling into, I mean, I live and work in London. Traveling into town today would have potentially been quite dangerous for me. It's because some of those trains were going to be rather warm. But also, have you seen how many train tracks have started to sort of, bend in the heat? I might have been stuck in town, not able to get home again, or worse, having to get a bus home.
That happened to me once. That happened to me in Portugal when the line buckled at 47 degrees.
Oh, it's been really hot there, hasn't it? They've had fires and all sorts.
Oh yeah, that's a regular occurrence, unfortunately. Portugal and their summer fires. Like the whole country was burning down like several years ago, and then there's not like one mention of it on the UK news. But then when some tiny part of the UK, like South Wales or something, has a tiny flood, it's reported all over Portugal news, and I get relatives ringing me saying, "There's a flood. Are you okay?" So it's sort of
That's really strange.
Yeah, like it's sort of the forgotten country sometimes.
We're
But
quite
yeah,
bad
it
in
gets
the-
extremely hot.
We're quite bad in the UK at covering international news. I fear we're going slightly off topic though if we get too far into that.
But
It's funny.
47 is not fun. You have to
So
sort of wet your pajamas.
Yeah, I mean, and that then seeps into the bed.
Yes. And
Oh no,
that's,
I mean,
that's
say
good.
that. No, it doesn't. It just evaporates.
Yeah.
I was about to say.
At 47, it's the only way to stay alive during the night.
On the plus side, you probably don't have problems with rising damp in that circumstance.
Oh God.
I mean, like on outfits, I mean, you can get all funny extremes. It's funny what you're saying about you don't feel that sure in kind of smarter clothes, Simon. I go kind of back and forth.
Well, you've seen me in a suit. I look fantastic in a suit. I just don't like wearing them.
I think you do. I think you do pull it off better than me, to be honest.
Thank you.
I do sometimes feel very. It can have a psychological effect. Like I do find it can sometimes make me feel like, oh, I'm on top of things, and other times it can make me feel like I'm wearing my dad's suit. I mean, it very much depends how things are going as to how much that feels.
Yeah.
I mean, equally, it can sometimes it can be fun to do that to it on occasions. Like I dressed up a bit more dapper or something like that for like a wedding. So I went to a wedding a few months ago. I can't remember at this point. And I kind of it was in a field and it was kind of a more relaxed vibe, but it was still trying to wear something a bit more formal for a wedding. So it was actually quite a hard dress code to know what to do with. But I did end up going for basically I left it to very much the last minute to decide what to wear because I'd just been so busy with everything else I didn't have a chance. And I put together some stuff with the knowledge that it was likely to be very warm. And I think I managed to pull off something that actually looked really nice. And I felt like, oh, actually I managed to do something that worked there. But generally, I mean, weddings can be very awkward. I mean, I feel like I just default to something that looks a bit like a suit, like what other people wear to work, or like what I wear to work, and I do feel like that can sometimes look a bit, not slovenly, but just like a bit boring. And you see some people who just seem to have just a natural ability with it. I've been very much at the other end of this, like right up that end of that spectrum, because I went to a particular university where there were many occasions where you had to wear a very formal outfit that was very particularly prescribed, which you can probably guess what I'm talking about.
One of the three great universities, yes.
Is the third one Trinity?
It's a good thing Joey's not here because he went to Cambridge, so we'd have a great old argument.
Okay, anyway, right, we'll talk about this later. Dear. Anyway, many universities have such a practice, which is quite fun because you're like a penguin. That's quite enjoyable, and everyone's in that outfit. And actually, genuinely, you can understand why outfits are so prominent in society because they make you feel a bit like a sense of you're kind of building into by wearing it, or like you have that sense of you're doing a tradition, like, and that like the tradition thing in general doesn't work all that well, but it is quite funny to be like doing some formal event and you're all wearing the same outfit and you have that quite nice sense that like, oh, this has been done a lot through history. I mean, it's kind of what drives a lot of like clothing stuff. But that shouldn't be the case in the office every single day.
It really shouldn't. It's such an anachronistic way of looking at things. Unless you and it's also it shuts people out, doesn't it? Because if you can't afford to wear the right kind of suit or the right tie or high heels or whatever weird and wonderful demand people make.
Living.
Well, partly yes, is the cost of living is just insane at the moment, but partly also you're just locking out people who might be fantastic at the job they do, but might not have the ability to wear some of these things, be able to afford to wear that Savile Row suit or those Louis Vuitton shoes or whatever they may be. And you might be losing out on people who can do the job incredibly well because you are applying this weird sort of standard. And it's quite interesting what you were saying about, you put on the suit and you feel sort of confident and so forth. I know exactly what you mean. And for me, it's a little bit of it's an external mask, isn't it? You're literally putting on a modern day suit of armor.
Well, it's like when you're wearing a kind of uniform, you kind of, in some ways, it
moves you outside of yourself and into a role, right?
Yeah, exactly. And like, sometimes that's quite confidence building because you feel maybe part of a team, or you feel like it's funny how like if you've been in any position where you're customer service, the uniform just makes people approach you so differently. Generally, in my experience, positively compared to maybe how they might respond if I just talk to them randomly. I mean, I find in some ways people are more open. In other ways, obviously, you can get some abuse and other kind of hostility. But like, I do find it acts a bit like a shield in those circumstances. I mean, even then, the outfits can be painful. Go on.
Sometimes you have to have a particular body for a suit, which not everyone can have.
Yeah.
Like, I can't get a suit that fits me well, and the cost of tailoring one would be like a very high cost. So there's some lovely vintage suits from the 1940s which would probably fit my sort of body, but like modern suits don't have the same cut in them, so they all look like they're hanging off me, and they've got no waist definition, so it looks like I'm a kid borrowing their dad's suit again. So it's kind of like and I heard there's a dress code at my work, and I don't know what it is or where to find it, but about a certain number of inches the dress must be above the knee. Or I don't know what that is, but
I mean, I did a work call today whilst up to my chest in the River Thames, so I'm not over. Oh, I'll tell you what, it was 38 degrees inside my house, and outside it was basically the same. And this is with the windows closed and everything else. I know. So I took my work phone, I paired it up with my earphones and put it into my bag, and I walked up to the river near me, and I sort of left my bag on the shore, waded in until I was sort of quite sort of deep. And I was just on the phone whilst just sort of like up to my chest and walked. Nice. I was like, oh, this is the most comfortable I've been all day. What? And this is with the new head of my department who was doing a call with us.
Simon, I feel like if I was watching someone who on a work call left their back door of their house and walked down and walked into the river wearing, well, actually, no, in my head you're wearing a suit. I guess that's the caveat here. Wearing like a business phone, I'd be like, oh, are they just walking? Are they just going to keep walking?
I'm a modern day Reginald Perrin, obviously.
My reference was more. My reference was more one of the endings of Green Wing. But yes.
Oh, I loved Green Wing. But no, so I waded into the river. Waded into the river, and so I was just on this call, and I mean, I was still wearing a t-shirt because the UV index is insane still, and there's only so much factor 50 I can put on my body because sun cream just feels weird. And yeah, so I was just standing there with these earphones in on a call with the new head of my department, just like happily chatting away with them. It's like they
Oh,
really can't
dear.
see me because I didn't have it was just on my phone, didn't have the the video turned on. But yes, I think when I described it to them, well, they actually said they were quite jealous. So
I
Okay,
am.
quick fire. If both of you, and also we'll say it at the same time. Okay, I'm going to count down, and the question you have to answer is: have you ever joined a work call in a state which would be extremely indecent? 3, 2, 1. Yes.
yes.
Okay, and I suspect the
What?
answer is
What
yes
if?
for most people.
Yes,
But
it
Yeah.
absolutely is.
What if
look,
you're in the middle of a big meeting and you need to go to the toilet?
Oh god,
You
I've done
you
that
have
many
to.
times.
Yeah, you have
sorry,
to sort of
sorry.
leave the device over there, and I can't
Oh god,
hold it in any
I think we've
longer.
killed the mysterious voice. It's
Marianne,
hyperventilating.
what I love is that's not specifically what I meant, but that did because I just meant
That
like
is
you've
inappropriate.
woken
Yeah.
up, you've got a
Oh
meeting,
God,
and like it's right at
always
the
in my
beginning, and
pajamas
yeah,
before 11. Yeah, always in the pajamas.
I didn't mean pajamas, but like you've just got to jump on the call, but you're sort of still getting ready, so you have a few moments where you're just like running around, just like hello, how are you? And it's just like
Yeah.
very close.
Oh, need to get my water.
yeah.
So when you said when I go to the toilet, I was like, do you strip to go to the toilet?
Well, I think I have done calls with, no attire because of the fact that, if you're like getting changed or something.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And I get paranoid. I actually physically cover the camera as well, like put a
Yes, I get
thing
so
over
paranoid.
So
it.
I've learned to do that since.
Okay,
Oh God,
tell.
no.
Oh, God. So this is just between us. It's not going anywhere else apart from published on the internet and shared with friends. So my boss once rang me, and it was a hot day, and so I just like anyway. And so I answered the call and I was chatting away, and I had my earphones in, so I was just moving around my room, like making my bed and sorting myself out and all of it. And 5 minutes into the call, she says, you do know your camera's on, right? And I'm just there in just a pair of boxes and nothing else. Like, just completely just in my own little world, sorting things out.
Camera
Whilst
on.
chatting away quite happily. And it's like, and it took you 5 minutes to tell me? And she went, I didn't quite know how
Oh
to
my
like broach the subject
God.
with you. I was like, can you just
Amazing.
tell me next time?
I had a similar thing, a bit less bad though, where I was on the iPad. I was sort of sitting with my feet up with no shoes or socks, and I accidentally rotated the camera. So my manager was looking at my feet. Oh God.
Do you know
And
people pay quite a lot of money for that, so I wouldn't worry too much.
my brother made money off selling his feet to a man. Pictures of his feet, yeah.
I
on.
think there's an entire episode there.
My brother is heterosexual, but he has made money off men wanting to see his feet. But yeah, my manager and my ex-manager were both just looking at my feet for a while before I realized, oh shit, I'm showing my feet on the camera instead of my face. What an idiot! Because the mobile devices, you got that button to flip
Yeah.
the camera going backwards.
Oh
Oh,
God, yeah.
embarrassing.
All the
Yeah.
buttons are quite close together, and sometimes
Yeah.
you do the wrong one, which is why usually, if I'm in that position and I'm sort of rushing on to get ready, which happens because I mean, let's be honest, being a bit disorganized is quite a common trait of being autistic,
Mhm.
and also, I mean,
You would never know from how difficult it is for me to try and get people to record this sodding podcast.
that was a subtweet.
Sorry.
That was a subtweet, and I'm offended.
There's nothing sub about it, dear.
That and
Sorry, I've interrupted you. Carry on.
mercy. So what on earth was I talking about?
Being disorganized.
Yeah.
Yes, this is ironic. I don't know whether we want to keep this in. Yeah, and also, to be frank, probably some effect of some kind of long COVID thing I've had since August, which is August 2020, which has definitely made me tireder. It can be a struggle. There's also the fact that, you can want to work your schedule around lots of other stuff going on in your life. You can sometimes run a busy way. Yeah, you are basically like waking up at 9:59 and joining the meeting at 10, and that means you are getting ready. And I think my general practice is just make sure you're never actually in front of the camera, because there's always a risk it's going to be on. So I'll always sort of have the phone at a decent distance away and just sort of reach over if I'm using the phone, or have the camera unplugged or turned off or whatever if I'm using the computer, because it just it's a paranoia. It's also that sense of it's funny you say your example, because I do think it would be it's something that makes you paranoid because it'd be hard to recover from. but you're mostly doing it because it's just how you're using this tech to adapt to a situation where you're just struggling to juggle everything. You also sometimes just have days where you just, even if actually you are just like fully dressed, and so you just happen to be just like, I don't want to be seen on camera today because I just feel like so self-conscious of how I carry myself, and how I look, and how I act.
I always have my camera off nowadays.
But it's an interesting point you make there, because so this is something I was talking to a friend about the other week. Sometimes you don't want to be seen. You don't want people to perceive you.
Yes,
You just don't. You're there, but you don't want people to, because you need time to just put that shell back and just find the ability, I suppose, to just deal with some of these people and things that are going on around you.
I wondered if you did that on purpose. For the listener, Marianne has turned on her video and is showing us
we're
something
talking
covered
about
in dinosaurs
we're talking
or
about
something
being
on this event.
indecent. I was cooking and I'm wearing like a handmade by me what's it called, apron thing, and it's some extra Mr. Men fabric that I had.
We're going to have to ask you, for the listener, to clarify, you were wearing other things other than this.
Oh yes, definitely wearing
the
other
only
things.
thing she was wearing.
Definitely wearing other things. That's that nice, cool top. But
very good. Yes.
We're talking about looking indecent and looking strange, but yeah, here I am in a cooking apron, which I forgot to remove. So
it's a Mr. Man cooking apron, though,
yeah.
So it's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah.
As millennials, we are obsessed with our own nostalgia, and Mr. Men is very much a good bit of nostalgia. So
yeah,
does Mr. Men count as nostalgia?
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh God, I feel old now. Thank you.
What's the big red button thing behind you on the table? It looks like there's a massive red alarm button on your table directly behind.
Is that the big end of the universe button?
Yeah, it looks like a massive plunger, like a big red, an emergency plunger.
Emergency! They've perceived me.
That's my tahini.
Oh, I still don't get how that could be that. Fair enough. It just looks like because cameras aren't really that detailed that far away. It just looks like oh dear. I feel
That's how high we are off the heat. That we're laughing over a big tahini button.
We are.
The rails have fully buckled, and we have just derailed into a field.
Yeah, I know, right?
My train of thought derails every day, so still, it's all fun and games, and we've all grown up, and we're now, adults nominally.
Yeah, we're really old now. I'm going to be 30 on Sunday.
Is it really your birthday on Sunday?
Yes, 24/7.
For some reason, I thought you were significantly young, like at least a few years younger than both me and Simon.
Is it because of my skin? I do try and take care of it.
I don't know why. Anyway.
I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah. I mean, I know I'm older than you are, Mysterious Voice. So that just this is why I normally bring Joe or Kim along, because they're older than me. So I just feel like
Simon actually puts his voice through a filter. He normally sounds like an extremely old man.
I normally sound like Roz. Let's be honest here. So
that's a reference that'll be lost on people. I think it's a challenge cross-referring other podcasts, because you can feel like you have this whole world that you understand and know, and you feel like everyone should know. And I've definitely found when I have conversations that podcasts are dropping into my references a bit too much, and it's even more inaccessible than when you refer to a TV show. Occasionally someone will get it, and it really connects, but because there's so much more, the audience is just so much smaller, it's a bit of a challenge.
But this is the thing, is that, and again, I suppose, we can briefly it's that sort of parasocial relationship thing of oh God, you know them as well. It's almost like you're talking about friends who you have in common. Hello, this is Simon in post-production. Just to let you know, whilst I started talking about parasocial relationships, and it's probably something we'll do an entire episode on because there are some very interesting things to talk about there, Marianne was trying her very best to distract myself and the Mysterious Voice by, holding up a pair of shoes, apparently. This, of course, necessitated a conversation about shoes. So, yes. In our defence, it has been rather warm the last day or two. Anyway, back to the programme.
I like how we've done an episode on clothes, essentially, and although we've kind of diverged quite a bit from the temperature, it has now just descended into Marianne shows us her clothes.
Marianne's just showing off her 1950s shoes.
Yeah,
those are really cool, actually.
Yeah, they're 1940s.
Oh, they're not
breathable.
1940s. They are breathable. They're mesh.
Are they comfortable to wear? They look like they'd be quite solid.
They look like rattan furniture.
Yeah, they're meshy. They're a birthday present I haven't worn yet. I was restoring them this afternoon. painting the bits that lost their colour. I like mixing up paints and making the exact right colour. Special shoe paints, of course.
Special shoe. Of course, there are special shoe paints.
Yeah, and when I eat and stuff, and when I sit down, I always sit like this, so there's lots of space in this area.
Mm.
So I can never sit like
Hold
that.
on, you need to explain because this listener can't tell what you're talking
always
about.
sit like I'm.
Yes, and it's primarily audio
wings.
medium.
Yes,
Yeah,
it's
I always
primarily audio.
sit like I've got wings, which means like my elbows are always sticking out. And anytime someone puts their arm completely on the armrest on the tube, I always fight back for at least 50% of that. I always go, right, I'm going to stand my ground. Sometimes.
For the listener, Marianne was sticking her arms out to either side at basically 90-degree angles, which probably makes her very unpopular on a train.
No, I don't go because I'm very. I honour the rule, so I don't go 50% over the line of the armrest.
Yeah.
So if the armrest is about yay thick, I don't go further than that.
I mean,
yay is not an audio description.
If the armrest
Marianne has a tape measure.
For the purposes of the tape.
Is 2 inches thick. I don't put my arm further than 1 inch out of that area.
Can I have that in modern units? What's an inch?
About 5 centimeters in modern. There's a lot of things I prefer centimeters, but with body measurements, I prefer inches. Like I don't know why.
I love how the one person here who's from a country which entirely uses metric is the only person to use imperial to describe this situation.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Inches. Yeah, we don't use inches.
Just about to say, you're going to have a fun time editing this to keep it back on topic.
I mean,
we were talking about being hot. By which I mean being warm, not being sexy.
That's God. Ooh, yeah.
Well, you know how to bring me back down to earth,
For the
don't
listener,
you? Honestly.
there are 3 very, very attractive people on the screen. I'm joking.
How did they get this call?
This is for autistics only.
Craig the Bear is the only attractive person.
I realised as I made that joke that the funnier version was to go, where did that other person appear?
Yeah.
Oh, little Craig. Yeah, he is cute.
We are all an attractive bunch, including the for the reference for the listener again, because I feel like I have to be the one to correct Simon on this. Craig is Simon's recording bot with a little image of a bear, and this has nothing to do with Simon. I have no bears, but I do have an otter.
I think I know what that means.
I'm not even going to get into that.
I'm just saying I think I know what it means.
So, weather.
Yeah.
See, this is the problem: is that hopefully, when people listen to these broadcasts, they make a kind of logical sense, because I do spend several hours cutting, changing, and reducing these things down.
I think I am going to have a cold bath soon on the topic of weather. But yeah.
Oh, I can imagine. Yes,
while we're on weather, let's talk about the other end of the spectrum, which is cold, where being autistic is also fun because you get things like you're very conscious of things like your ears freezing. You're very conscious of things like I get incredibly chapped hands, which are extremely fun and involve having to put cream on at night, which is also its own sensory fun.
Yes. Yes.
And I still have this memory of but no, talking earlier about like what you wear in different weather conditions. We had like at school jogging bottoms and a top. Which we had as part of the PE kit, and that was meant to be specifically for when it was cold weather. We always wore shorts and a rugby top, or there was like a kind of another version of that. But like we never wore these jogging bottoms. The one time we had an absolutely freezing snowy day during PE, I brought mine in and I wanted to wear them, and then the PE teacher said, "No, you can't wear those because no one else bought them, so that would be unfair." So you can see why autistic people don't have a fun time in PE, considering that the whole point of it seems to be masochism. We should talk about school days at some point. Massive topic list. I hope you're keeping track of these topics.
Do we have any final thoughts?
So, obviously, we're recording this on a Monday. It's been painfully hot today. I mean, I've fortunately been in air-conditioned offices today, but when I was moving between those offices and after work, it was painful. I'm going back into the office tomorrow, be in aircon, but it still looks like it's going to be painful before and after. I am quite glad this is just 2 days of this, and it goes down in temperature after. But, you know, even something slightly less than this is incredibly painful. And I mean, this is definitely something that isn't just an autistic thing. You know, it's something that a lot of people find uncomfortable.
Yes.
But
Yeah, funny.
yeah.
Yeah, funny enough, my brother is autistic and he's absolutely fine in this heat.
Oh,
I don't mind being in the heat, but I don't like sleeping in the heat or
Yeah.
working in the heat. Like, I don't mind if I know I'm going to walk in the heat, then I'll just deal with it. Oh, I'm only walking, I'll be home soon. But when I'm sleeping, it's like, no, it must be 20 degrees. Otherwise, it's difficult to sleep.
It's going to be between 26 and 34 degrees tonight, which is like daytime hot temperatures, which is just.
It's. I've just looked. It's 32.5 degrees in my bedroom at the moment.
I don't have a temperature sensor, which is a shame because I quite like to know.
28 outside. I've got my
Yeah,
Galileo over there.
I'm going to go around and open every window in the house and hopefully let out as much heat overnight as possible. Oh yes, you have a Galileo.
Marianne
And
has
then,
the exact same Galileo thermometer as I do.
I think
Very
there is
nice,
only
very
really one Galileo thermometer.
Yeah.
Come on,
I had a
they've all been
smaller
made
one
in
which
the
was
same
coloured.
factory.
I had a smaller one which was coloured, like little red blobs, blue blobs, green blobs. That was my favourite, but it broke.
I would say, having had a very boiling day, we're now looking forward to an absolutely boiling night. So, as you can tell, we are all in a grumpy
Annoyed.
mood. And I mean, it's definitely something where I don't think it's specifically an autistic thing. But I hope, dear listener, that you've learned a little bit about the experience of being autistic in the heat and some of the challenges addressing
painful.
around that. I think we've mostly talked about sensory stuff rather than like social stuff, apart from clothing. But like, I mean, the sensory stuff can be very difficult to deal with. And of course, every autistic person is different. When you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person, and there's probably some autistic person out there whose special interest is being as hot as possible.
Yes, they live in a sauna because it's the best place for. And weirdly enough, one of the things which was recommended to me a few years ago, and I have found to be phenomenally helpful, is hot water bottle. Fill it with water, stick it in the freezer for half an hour,
yeah.
and then put it in your bed, and then just like far enough away from you, but it just
For the listener, Marianne looked absolutely horrified when you said a hot water bottle.
I went.
Never seen your eyes so wide.
I've got this nice, the big size fairy liquid that's like the size of a baby. Got one of them and it finished, so I filled it with water and I put that in the fridge. I'm going to get all of that out and shove it into a big basin and then put that.
So we're going to get a message tomorrow that says Marianne has died of hypothermia.
If anyone could do that, it'd be one of us.
Well, yeah, there is a bit of that, isn't there? So, but yes, no,
Right.
I think the sensory thing though is a big part of it, and I'm sure we can probably talk about the social aspect of struggling with just weather in general. It's another point, but when we get up to anything sort of blood temperature and above, everybody's going to struggle. And I think checking in on friends, relatives, anyone who might have issues, is probably a really good thing to do at the moment.
Yeah, for sure. For the listener, Marianne is currently measuring the size of her face.
I don't know. This is the only thing I can see on the screen. Is what? Not the only
I
thing.
could just see the yellow measuring tape.
I think the heat has finally got to her, and she's gone completely bonkers.
Yes. Which, to be honest, I feel like is the only way really to deal with it. You can't take things seriously in this temperature. You just got to go with it, whether it's wearing shorts in the office, measuring your face, or lying down, walking into the river, or lying in a series of containers of ice. I think really it's just like whatever you need to do to survive. And I mean, that's sometimes when being kind of open to being, when you already feel like you're a bit in the out group or you're a bit out of society anyway, it can be quite good because you just don't give a crap.
Genuinely, yes. and that is a good point I want to just like kind of finish on, is the fact that because I know I'm autistic, because I know I'm already a bit, air quotes, different and weird, I kind of feel like I have a little bit of leeway when it goes, do you know what, I'm not going to conform to your weird and wonderful rules. I'm going to turn up in shorts and a t-shirt because I know what I'm doing, and when I speak, people are going to listen to me because I know what I'm talking about.
You also can become like, and I know I said we're not going to do this, and now I'm going to break my own rule. You do sound like a politician who is essentially breaking the rules by like realizing that there's actually no enforcement mechanism against you just turning up wearing whatever the fuck you want to work. I'm really recall that.
Have you just compared me to a Tory MP? I know where you live. I will hurt you.
It's not just Tory MPs. I think I basically highlighted the thing that you realise, hang on, this rule has no enforcement mechanism. I can just turn up in a t-shirt and shorts if I want to, and no one will do anything. So, I mean, I definitely do think you sort of learn certain things. I mean, you can't push that in other seasons sometimes, but you
No,
can definitely
of
just
course.
you definitely see that if you just sort of do it, people don't necessarily question those things. And that is something that if you sort of work out how that can work for you, it can make your life a hell of a lot more comfortable, make it easier to deal with sensory stuff.
Yeah, and I do honestly think that one of the very few benefits of 2 years of social distancing and all the rest of it is the fact that we have actually proven people can work remotely. People can work work better, in fact, when they're comfortable. And wearing things that are comfortable mean that you're not being overwhelmed by that sort of weird sensory feeling. And sort of go from there.
Yeah, for sure. And I think highlighting what matters is how well you do at that and the job itself, and it's just a type of adjustment. So, are we done? I mean, on a programming note, we are going to do the masking episode. One of the challenges has been that I have, since my appearance in episode 2, have just been I've had a fun few months. So, yes, we will be doing the masking episode at some point soon. This isn't going to become our Tacominaris Bridge Disaster episode. We will eventually do it. We also have a bunch of other topics we want to go over, but I think, frankly, we just wanted to record something about how bloody hot we were today, and we'll try and maybe do masking and some of those bigger topics of a full house, because that and things like disclosure and so on definitely benefit from having lots of different perspectives. And I don't think, even if we tried to do it with the three of us right now, we'd do it justice, not least because we are, as the listener can surely hear, breaking down, melting down. Yes, roasting. Autistics roasting on an open fire.
If either of you tell me how many days it is until Christmas, I will burn this thing to the ground. Anyway,
it's 5 months and 7 days.
As Mysterious Voice has just outlined, yes, we will actually do that masking episode soon, and indeed lots of other episodes. We've got various things planned, and I'm hoping to try and get a couple more guests on for some of those episodes, including things like later life diagnoses of both autism and ADHD. I've got a few people in their 40s and 50s who have recently been diagnosed and want to come and talk to us about how they have experienced life up to that point and what it's done for them.
I mean, I'm looking forward to those ones because, I mean, I was diagnosed in school. So, I mean, I definitely feel like I don't have, I've spoken to people. I don't feel like I've generally got a great understanding of people's kind of diagnosis stories.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good idea, actually.
We all need to go off and have our cool showers before our bedtimes.
We absolutely do. Listener, I apologise for the chaoticness of this. Anyone who's been in the United Kingdom, or indeed any part of Europe today, Monday the 18th, although this goes out on a Friday, you will know just how bizarre the entire day has been. This is incredibly unusual weather, and unfortunately we're going to see more of it because guess what? The world is on fire because of anthropogenic climate change.
Right, we need to finish this podcast because we've tried to finish it multiple times.
Yeah, I said I wanted to go at 9.
Thank you for tuning in. It's been a pleasure as ever to speak to both of you, and it's lovely to see you again, Mysterious Voice, and we look forward to speaking to you all again in a fortnight's time. Hopefully we'll have a few more of our co-hosts and we might finally get to one of our more interesting episodes. So it's good night from me, it's good night from the Mr. Men, and it's good night from
the Mysterious Voice.
Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
We're slick professionals at this. Bye-bye.
Bye.